I do have some type that is very, very much bigger than that, and it is out of metal, but it's extremely heavy. And that's a lot of metal to cast. So in order to get by that, we make our type out of wood, usually boxwood and usually end grain. And we did this for signage, for larger letters, because if I'd have a drawer full of that big type and heavy, maybe 100 pounds, if I didn't know that it was real heavy and I pulled this out and cleared the cleared the cabinet, I probably would go to the floor with it because it's very, very heavy. So I have wood type. And we use that to use for signage, like over on the wall and that kind of thing. And suppose I need a logo. Here's a logo that everybody recognizes. This is Coca-Cola logo. It's the #1 recognizable logo in the world. Anybody want to tell me what number 2 is? Matt, what's number 2? McDonald's. McDonald's, yes. Not the M, but the golden arches. McDonald's in Chinese means nothing to me, but the M is all recognizable. And we have things like the Nike swoosh and the Apple and that kind of thing. The interesting part about the Coca-Cola logo is that it was designed in 1885 by the bookkeeper at Coca-Cola in Atlanta. And he never got royalties out of it, but it is Coca-Cola script. And you see things that look like Coca-Cola script, but they're not necessarily Coca-Cola script on t-shirts and that kind of thing because you have to pay royalties to Coca-Cola. The other interesting thing is that in 1889, Pepsi-Cola came on board, and as of last September, they have changed their logo 13 times. The moral of the story is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm sure we all remember when they tried to change Coke. Then suppose I need a logo of a local company, Armstrong World Industries. They do ceiling tiles and floor tiles. And I actually have that font, but as soon as they put the circle around it and made it go through the R, I didn't have that kind of type, so we had to make one to use. And then suppose somebody wants to sell their mule. Well, we have this mule right here, and this is what it looks like, but maybe they don't want this mule because it's not their mule. And I said, well, this was the mule I have, and they would say it's not my mule. And what they would have to do then is hire an artist. And the artist would come in and draw their mule as long as they were holding it very, very tight. And then after we have this, I would send that rendering to the engraver, and with tools like this, he would take a piece of copper and cut it out. That's why it's called a cut. He would actually cut the metal. And this one is very old. This is over 100 years old, and this is the print we're still getting off of it. So if they're done in copper, or most of the cuts, if you don't ruin them, they'll last a long time. I have illustrations, I have logos, I have wood type and metal type. It's all raised up. It'll all pick up ink. It'll all put an image on a piece of paper, but there's something that is identical to every piece there. And that is the distance from the feet to the face. This is called type high, and that's the name of our club, the .918 club. It's 918 thousandths of an inch high. Standardized in the early 1600s. Before that, it was just ever so slightly different. But now it doesn't matter what country I'm in or where I'm at, as long as I'm doing letterpress, I could go to another shop and borrow their type and it would be okay, or borrow their cuts and it would be okay. All the presses are set up for the same height type. Now I want you to remember that, and I also want you to remember this. Prior to 1849, when we used this case, we used a 2-case system. If you go to your history books and look at a colonial print shop, or even Gutenberg shop, or go to the cloisters in Ephrata here, or go to Franklin Court, or even Williamsburg, they're going to use a 2-case system. Up here you'll notice that the compartments are all the same size. That's because this houses the capital letters, and the capital letters are arranged in alphabetical order, except the J and the U, which were the last 2 letters to be added to our alphabet. Again, early 1600s. We used a lot of Latin, and Latin had the sound, but not the letters. Now, printers being basically lazy people, not faint of heart, you're going to find out when Ken runs the press, but they didn't want to relearn the case, so anytime you're looking for a capital J or a capital U in the case, doesn't matter whether it's this case or this case, you're going to find it right after the Z. They just stuck it at the end. Smart people. Down here, this houses all the small letters, all the punctuation, and all the numbers, and all the spacing material we need in the same font. But you'll notice that these compartments are all different sizes. That's because these letters are arranged according to frequency of use. We use more E's and I's and O's than we do L's and K's and Q's. Does that make sense to everybody? The largest compartment is that of the E, which is the most used letter in the English language. Anticipating your next question, the most used word is the. So when you leave, I'm going to give you a paragraph. I'm not supposed to tell you what it said, what's unique about it. It's nothing wrong with it. It just contains no E's or the word the in it, and that's called a lipogram. Now, as I told you, capital letters up here, small letters down here, thus the term uppercase and lowercase. That's where that comes from. That's a printing term. Okay? So you have 0.918, which is type pi. You have uppercase and lowercase, and you have the last two letters to be added to the alphabet, which is the J and the U. Now I'm ready to go to press. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to put it on this piece of granite or this piece of marble. This is called an imposing stone. And I'm going to slide that out and let it stand by itself. That's called a naked form. And I'm going to put a frame around it. The frame is called a chase. And Gutenberg's was wooden, and Franklin's was wooden. This is metal because I'm using such a modern press over here. This press is about 100 years old. It's 100 years old next year. And I'm going to place the type about where I want it. Now, these are Christmas cards that we did this year, and here's the tree. And I placed it about where I want it. And this is the greeting. And I'm going to place this about where I need it to be. I'll line it up perfectly on the press. And I'm going to take up the voided areas with blocks of wood called printer's furniture. And then I'm going to take this device right here. This is a really good device, especially if you play Scrabble. Okay? This is called a coin. Q-U-O-I-N-S. And this is a coin key. And I take my key and I put it right in here and I turn this and it acts as a wedge and expands and pushes all the pressure to the center to hold the type in. Now the type is justified. Every line is the same, even though it doesn't look the same. Every line is the same. And we push that together so that when I lift this up, there's nothing else holding it in here but pressure. Okay? Now, if I'm not real good at what I do, and the pressman comes and grabs this, and it's not tight, we have a mess on the floor, and that's called pieing your type. And you never want to pie your type.